So hello, good morning my friends, I hope you're all doing very well. It's been a few weeks since I was able to bring you a video, mostly because of weather. We had Greek Easter as well, which there was a lot of tourists up here and people visiting family and what have you for the week. And all of that caused a bit of disturbance in the area, which meant that any time I tried to sit and photograph anything, somebody would inevitably turn up and the birds would fly. But I thought I would come today to these fields here behind where I live, in this village here, to the farmland, where I'm less likely to bump into tourists, and have a look around, see what birds and bugs I might find. And along the way I thought I would give you a few tips to help you with your wildlife and bird photography. So to start off, my first tip would be research. And that basically comes in two styles of research. The first is what I would call an academic style of research, whereby you look up on the internet, on your laptops or desktops, what have you, and research whatever species it is that you're keen on photographing. And I wouldn't limit myself to whatever Wikipedia says either. So on your Google search, go further down on the list, on the search results, and dig into some of those scientific papers that you might find, PDFs, what have you, produced by people studying biology, zoology, and have a read. Those might reveal a lot more in terms of behavior than the standard listing on Wikipedia or even in the Collins Bird Guide. And knowing behavior will help you better plan your trip to be able to photograph the animal and photograph the behavior that you want. The second form of research is actually just getting out into the field, spending hours observing, and seeing for yourself the kind of behavior that the animals display. And in so doing, you actually can pick up tricks, little tells, if you like to use a poker term, that the animals might do before displaying a particular behavior. So for example, with the great crested grebes, to try and get, throughout the day, they will do their normal courtship behavior where they mirror each other. But if you want to get the behavior where they actually hold the weeds in their mouths and they actually wiggle their flippers and go up and breast to breast, you can look for that behavior. Basically, they'll do the normal mirroring, then they'll drift away from each other, and if they both dive, you know they're going for seaweed. And then they'll both come up with it in their mouth, low head, they'll approach each other and go up and do that behavior. So learning to actually predict that sort of thing will really help you nail the sort of images that you want. And the other thing with learning behavior is that you're able to tell a story with your images, which are always going to be more powerful and more compelling as images than if you were just taking a picture or video of a bird on a branch, not doing anything in particular, at most singing. So research and research again. That's my first tip. So tip number 2 is Fieldcraft. And there's two aspects to Fieldcraft. The first is being able to read the signs as you go through nature. So you're walking along and you might see something, and that could be a telltale sign of a bird or any other kind of animal. So in my case now, I spotted on the bush as I was walking up the track here, that one of the topmost leaves of the bush there is full of bird dropping. So there's a stick that protrudes, a twig, a small branch that protrudes above those leaves, and so I'm assuming that it's a favoured spot for birds to perch on. I'm not sure which birds use it, but I'll hang around here for a moment and see if something comes along to sit on that perch. The second aspect to Fieldcraft, it follows on from the first point I made about researching your target species, because when you know the kind of ground your target species likes to inhabit, whether it's nesting, foraging. Oh, is that a golden oriole just flew past? Sorry, got distracted. Yeah, knowing where it likes to live, where it nests, what it feeds on, will help you be able to firstly locate areas where it might exist, but it'll also give you an idea of how to approach that species, whether wearing a ghillie suit and sitting in a field will help you, whether being in a hide, or whether you can just walk down a track because they are habituated to human activity and they're not that worried. So, okay, and it is a corn bunting that's using that. It just flew onto the perch, onto that little twig, and he's just sitting there calling. Yeah, so being able to spot things like that will also help you find locations where you can photograph and film birds or mammals, whatever. Okay, so that's my tip number 2. Okay, and that brings me on to tip number 3, which also relates to the other 2, and that is your phone. There are a multitude of applications that you can use that will help you in the field. Most obviously is something like the Collins Bird Guide, which is a fantastic reference. A second one which I absolutely love is called Seek, and basically you can upload a picture of this, or you can point the camera at the back of your screen, and it will identify or try to identify any kind of animal, plant, flower that you might come across. It's not always successful in identifying it, but it'll put you in the ballpark at least. So if it can't find the exact species, it will tell you what family usually it thinks it is in, and it is a really good source of information. So I'll put a link to it in the description below if I can, but you should be able to find it both on iOS and Android. It's called Seek, S-E-E-K. The second app, which I absolutely love, is called Merlin ID. I think it's called Merlin ID. Yeah, Merlin Bird ID. And again, I think it's both Seek and this one, Merlin, are free to download. So with Merlin, you can actually identify by sound. So I'm just on the edge of this copse here of poplar trees, and there's lots of bird song, but I can't see any birds. They're all quite high up in the canopy, but it would be nice to know what they are, and that is if you can't already identify by song. So you can click on Sound ID, and I'll do a screen record of this actually to show you as I go, and you can hit the record button, and it starts listening for birds, and it'll start picking them up, and as soon as it picks up the bird song, it starts identifying the birds, and it gives you a really good idea of what is in your location. And that gives you an idea of what's in the area and how you might go about photographing it if you know what it is. So for example, there's a golden oriole somewhere in there, and I know that they love their fruit, so I might try and find fruit trees in the area here and try and position myself. So for example, I know that there's a couple of fig trees down there, and I know that the orioles love figs, so I might try and position myself along there, although at this time of year the figs are not quite ripe yet, so they might not be going for them. But you get my point. It gives you an idea of what's in the area. So yeah, tip number 3, try and find apps that will help you identify both species and locations. Okay, so I think we're up to tip number 4, and tip number 4 is to try and not do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is shooting up at the belly of birds, which is of course a lot easier said than done. I'm sure this is the tip that you've probably heard more than any from most photographers, wildlife photographers, is to get at the animal's eye level, and it really is an important one, because getting to their eye level, regardless of what it is, whether it's a bird, whether it's a fox, whether it's an ant on the ground, getting to their eye level brings you into their world. It creates a far more compelling and immersive image. It also gives you the opportunity to take advantage of your shallow depth of field on your focal lengths, whether you're shooting macro or on a telephoto. You want an image that has a nice bokeh to it, lots of blurry background that will actually make the subject of your picture really stand out. Obviously there are times like this with these Spanish sparrows that are, there's a colony nesting in the poplar tree behind the camera there, going absolutely crazy. But just sitting here and observing them, there are certain twigs that they come out on that you can photograph them on when they perch briefly to rest. And the other main observation for something like this is that they're all flying backwards and forwards into the field behind me here, and they're coming back with bits of grass and straw and what have you. And I just peeked around the back there, and it's just been harvested. So there's lots of cut grasses which they're taking advantage of and bringing it up to their nests for nesting material. So I might even try and go back there and try and capture them actually foraging for the nesting material, and that way I can actually get to their level, get a shot of the sparrows at their own eye level. So I'll go and give that a go now. I'm in the mown field, and there's rows of the cut grass where they've made piles of strips of piles of the mown grass, and the sparrows are all going in that. It's a little bit difficult because they disappear. They're so small they disappear into the grass, but it should give you an idea of what I mean in terms of changing angle. If I can just focus, some of them are carrying huge bits of grass as well. Okay, I think I got some footage there, which I'll show you just to illustrate what I'm talking about in terms of getting to their level. Okay, so I think that was tip number 4. Okay, so I think we're up to tip number 5, and that is the weather. Don't be scared of the weather, regardless of what it is, whether it's a bright sunny day like today or pouring with rain. Use it to your advantage. So the standard advice for, I mean, it's, what time is it now? It's probably around 11 o'clock, I reckon. 11 o'clock, exactly. On a bright sunny day as today is don't bother going out to shoot. And I think that's a waste of time, because you can go to a wooded area such as this orchard, or a wood proper forest. And the extra light that is coming into that forest from the bright sunshine lifts the light generally in an otherwise dark wood. And you get nice dappling of sunlight, and you can use that to your advantage as well. And all of that means if you're shooting in a slightly brighter environment in a forest, you can lower your ISO, get a better quality image. So, you know, it's a question of shooting something appropriate to the weather conditions. And like I said, don't be scared of any weather. So in the rain, if you go to a lake and you can shoot the raindrops on the water with whatever bird it is that's on the water, and it can look amazing. Plus the bird will be full of raindrops on its feathers, which will look stunning. Same is true for snow. If it's snowing, you have all these beautiful flakes falling, and if you photograph something that's more black and white, so a greater spotted woodpecker, black, white and red, in a snowy environment, will really set it off. It'll look amazing. So just try and use the environment. What else? Mist can make it look rather mysterious. If you have a really cold morning, you can try and photograph the breath of animals, birds, whatever. So yeah, just use the weather to your advantage. Kit yourself out properly for whatever the weather is, and go out and shoot. Don't be scared of it. My sixth point follows on from that, which is basically shooting at dawn and dusk. You have the blue hour and the golden hour, which are some of the most beautiful light to photograph and film in. So definitely you want to be taking advantage of that as well. So you need to be getting up early, getting yourself into position before the wildlife comes along that you're targeting, and you want to stay out late. So yeah, get used to getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, getting out there and waiting until the light happens. And the same is true at the other end of the day. Stay longer than you think. Go home after everybody else, and you might just come away with images that nobody else has. My last bit of advice, I think tip number 7, is to not let the lack of a long telephoto lens stop you from going out and filming and photographing wildlife. There are other ways around it. So, for example, you could get a hide, you could get a ghillie suit, any number of ways. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a more budget lens. It doesn't have to be a 600 f4 worth 10, 12,000 pounds, dollars, euros, whatever. You'd be surprised at the quality of images that you can get even on the more budget end telephoto lenses. And that brings me to the end of this video. So I hope you found some value in it. Thank you so much for watching, if you've made it this far especially. So I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much, and bye for now.